And now we're peeling back the curtain to get a glimpse into John Lennon's 18-month separation from Yoko Ono, known as the Lost Weekend. At the center of it all was Lennon's companion and assistant, May Pang. The collection of photographs she snapped during that time shows a deeply personal look into Lennon's life outside the Beatles. We're so excited to welcome May Pang to New Day this morning ahead of her exhibit in Kirkland this weekend. Hello.
Hi, Kelly.
Thank you so much for being here. So if you can take us back in time, what year was it? And I understand John Lennon was your first boyfriend?
Yeah, technically, yes, he was my first. I dated a couple of times, but it was really the first guy I ever lived with. And it's just like, you know, thinking back now, it's like, oh, that's kind of weird to say, you know?
No, it's sweet.
Yeah, so it was, I worked for him and Yoko back in 1970. And this whole thing that started with me and him didn't start till in 73. So like middle of 73. So I had been there for 3 years.
Wow. And despite the nickname, The Lost Weekend, this period of John Lennon's life was much longer. How would you describe The Lost Weekend and what he was really going through during that time?
Well, they were having problems in the house, and everybody was working around them, knew. But you just sort of tiptoed around them, you know, so you weren't there. Like you try to melt into the wall. But it was so obvious. I mean, at one point he came into my office, and this was in Dakota, and he said, he asked me about some equipment that he wanted, and I said, fine. And he literally walked out the door, and she walked in. And she goes, have you seen John? And I looked at her with this, like, how did you miss him? He just literally walked out the door, and I said that to her. And she said, I guess he went into his office, because his office was next to mine. And I said, do you want? She goes, no, never mind, and she walked out. So you could tell there was all this tension running around. And we all just sort of tiptoed.
Yes, it makes sense. And your photos, we saw some of that in the intro.
Yes.
They're beautiful, and they show a different side of John Lennon than many people have seen. What story do you think these images really tell about John that maybe history has missed?
Well, you see, these photos are home shots. They're candid. They're not for any magazines or anything like. It was really just me shooting for us, as it were. And John would keep saying, come on, take some more, just take some more. You know,
so he liked being in front of the camera.
He liked it. When I took the photo, he said, you don't make me look fat. And I kept saying, what are you talking about?
What?
You never were fat. He goes, yes, I was. And so he goes, but I don't like it, but I like the way you capture my angle. He goes, carry on. That was his line, carry on. And so he used to have to coax me to take photos of him because he just wanted to see some other sides of himself. And I always, whatever I took, and then I would just put it away after we looked at them. And he had a couple of his own favorite shots, which he eventually wanted to use on 45 single sleeve, if anybody remembers that, you know? And so it was for the Imagine single that was being released in England. And it was 3 years after the fact. And he says, I want that picture for the sleeve. And it was a picture of him when we were up in New York, having a little 3-day weekend holiday, and my friend brought the keys. It was his place, and they had these dogs, so the dogs walking through the picture. And it was just something that I thought, oh, how beautiful. It was the fall, and I thought it was just a nice setting, and I fixed up my camera. No, it's not an Instamatic, guys. It was an actual 35, and you know, I got him when he got into the frame, I just yelled out to him, and he turned around and he looked at that. It was a shot.
And that's the shot. And you also captured him as he reunited with his son, too.
Yes,
Tell me about this. Beautiful.
Julian needed his father, and his father needed to know more about his son, and they'd been estranged for a while. They hadn't seen each other in 3 years. So it was time, and he knew it, and he kept calling, and he hadn't talked to him and hadn't seen him. So I thought, you know what? It's time for that. I know what it's like not to have the other parent. And so it was good, and he was so shocked. You could see it on Julian's face, like, what is Dad going to be like today? And it was like, oh my God, he was cool.
That's so special. And also, what was it like to be a fly on the wall during this time? Because he had legends like Mick Jagger, Elton John, David Bowie. Like, I mean, this time has got to be crazy.
Well, let me put it this way. To have those guys around, they were just like ordinary guys talking about, oh, what's happening today? What was I doing? You know, Paul would come over and says, oh, I'm going to go and record here. And Bowie's like, oh, come down. I just did Across the Universe. I want you to hear it. And Mick, you know, he loved to come over and just sort of sit and shoot the breeze and say, let John know what's going on, all the gossip that was happening around the place.
The names that you're saying, this is so cool. I must know about the exhibit of photos. Tell us what we can expect this weekend.
You know what? When people come down, they'll see this side of John that I know. You know, the pictures are the pictures that I've taken. You'll see him through my eyes. And that's what you're really seeing is how I saw John. A little different from the ones that in the magazines. So it's really a nice one, and I also try to tell people to watch the documentary that
tell me more.
That I had put out, that I had commissioned many years ago, and I needed to straighten out some storylines because you know, it's that, what is that, the telephone, you tell one story and next thing by the 10th person it's something else.
It's a completely different story.
And that happens, and it's still to this day. People take part of it, that's the truth, that actually happened, and then it's mixed with something else. And no, I wasn't working for John and Yoko when I was with John. I was his girlfriend, and that was it. And no, Yoko did not send us out to LA. These are just the storyline. So I had to, you know, tell my story. So it's on this movie called The Lost Weekend, a love story, and people can see it everywhere from Amazon Prime to Tubi to it's streaming, Apple TV, so they can all see it.
There it is. Well, amazing. It was wonderful hearing your side and see your passion. It was really great to meet you.
And yes, I will be at the gallery the whole time. They have me chained to the table, so I'm not leaving. They can come anytime. I will be there.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about. Peng's exhibit, The Lost Weekend, will be at La Petite Galleria at Gunner Fine Arts in Kirkland this Friday, August 7th through Sunday, August 9th. Then next week, it heads to the Artist Gallery in Olympia. Peng herself, like she just said, will be at the exhibit all weekend to meet customers and maybe even autograph some purchased items.